Our vision was never to be an online boutique, an e-commerce store. It was always so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
I think at that point, I partially went crazy. When we look today at 6 years ago and all the things that we set out to do,
We've done them all.
we've done them.
What is there left?
No, there's a ton left.
It happened once where a girl threatened to come beat me up, like over a face cream.
I had this insane protective motherly instinct that I have to make sure my daughter's okay. I'm going to put everything on the line for it. And I did.
This is Skin Talks, the podcast where we go deeper than skin, products, and trends and explore the conversations that actually matter in health, beauty, wellness, and confidence.
We're a mother-daughter duo and the founders of Boutique Skin Envie. After years inside the industry, we've learned that health is never just about what you use. It's about everything you digest, how you think, how you live, what you eat, how you move, what you put on your skin, and how you feel in your own body.
If you're looking for insight, honesty, and a fresh perspective on the future of health, beauty, and wellness, you're in the right place.
Let's get into it.
Skin Talks podcast by Boutique Skin Envie, hosted by Beate and Natascha.
Today's episode is going to be a two-part series. We are going to be diving into the beginning of BSC and then the future of BSC and basically all these successes, the struggles, the challenges that we kind of went through as business owners. And the reason doing this, I think, is because we've really been seeing a trend on entrepreneurship and people glorifying entrepreneurship. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts where people are talking about the real struggles of entrepreneurship. It's not like you just start something and then like 6 months later it works. And for us really just to be raw and authentic on how we built BSC and our dynamics and everything that we went through and really just bringing light to that it's not just this like, I mean, it's an amazing journey, obviously, but it's also, there's a lot of hardships that come with it. And I think that hopping on this trend is kind of fun because, you know, we have so much to talk about and we have so many experiences.
Yeah. And also it's 6 years since the start of pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So March 2020 was basically when, Canada and the rest of the world shut down. So it's March. And so we thought it would be kind of fun to like go back and tell our story.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting story. And again, like you said, entrepreneurship being a big thing that everybody thinks is an easy thing to do. And I think today is a perfect example because as an entrepreneur, you have a 2-month-old baby and here you are today and you are chatting about our story while breastfeeding.
Yes.
So it's like a vibe,
joys,
right?
Yeah.
And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. I think it's very empowering also for a lot of young people that are thinking about starting families, who want to start their own business also.
Or who have businesses and then want to start a family, how to balance that.
How to balance it. And it's not easy when you're an entrepreneur because it's not like you can just go on a 1-year maternity leave, right?
Yeah.
You still have to run the show. And if you're a solo entrepreneur, it makes it even more challenging. And if you're lucky enough to have a partnership like we do, makes it a little bit easier, but there's still a lot that goes on behind the scenes to be able to prepare for this kind of thing in life, right? So I think let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And
I mean, technically we've been in business for 8 years, but 6 years in March is really when things took off. We were a business that benefited from COVID, where I know that there was a lot of businesses that didn't benefit from COVID.
We were very lucky.
And I think you can really talk on this, but like from one day to another, like things just completely switched and we had to adjust at an exponential speed.
Yeah. So I guess for me, like you said, it's been about 8 years. So 2 years prior to seriously starting Boutique Skin Envie, like our lives changed, right? And we went from having jobs and I was an owner of a business to the next day no longer having a paycheck and having to start our lives over again, both you and I. And at the time, it was probably one of the most terrifying days of our lives. I'm speaking for both of us because I know you really struggled as well with it and kind of not knowing your future. But for me, at the time, I was 50.
I think there's a difference. Like I was 23 23.
Yeah. So
So like starting my life over at 23 is not
it's not as daunting.
yeah. When you're 50, it's completely
Yeah,
different.
it's different because you think your life is kind of, you've decided, like, you know what you're going to do. I was a business owner. I had partnership, but I was a business owner and I knew my future. I was in a family business. I was managing several companies, and from one day to the next, everything changed. Lost my job, never got a paycheck again, had a car. Car was a company expense, no longer had a car expense anymore. So I had to find the money, and thank God for my mother. My mother saved me. She came in and lent me money for a couple of months in a row. And obviously, like, I was not entitled to unemployment insurance because I was a business owner. And some people don't realize that. So if something happens to you and you lose your job, it's not like you get subsidized by the government. So obviously, because of what happened, I went into a really, really dark place because obviously deep depression, panic. I felt like my life was falling apart. And so I did go on a medical leave, and I did have medical insurance that helped me get through financially a couple of months, even though it just covered a partial amount of my expenses. But somehow, like, I knew that I was never going to go and get a job working for somebody. I always knew that I had to start over again. So obviously, once I got through the shock of losing my job, losing my company, losing every single familiar face that I had been working with for almost 30 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so it was very hard. I knew I had to survive. Like, I had to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in March of 2020, we had 10 brands on Boutique Skin Envie. I had been quietly and trying to reach out to different brands to get the brands in. And, one by one, we brought in a couple of extras like Aquafolia. And, there was, I think, France L'Or, made in Quebec. Like, slowly, we started to bring in more. But then in March, all of a sudden, it was like a light switch went on.
Yeah.
And I'm a very analytical person. I was sitting down one day watching the TV, listening to what was going on in the news around the pandemic, understanding that things were about to shut down. And on the back end of our platform where we could see our analytics, all of a sudden there was a ton of people in the checkout. All of a sudden there was more people on our website, and orders started to come in. And I remember calling you and saying, okay, Tash, with the brands that we have to place orders for the next 2 weeks because the world's shutting down, businesses are closing, and we need product so that we can sell product. And, we spent, I don't know, $20,000 or $25,000. And that we did not have. I mean, we could have had access to through credit cards or like me cashing in stuff. But at the time we didn't have it, and we just went on a whim. Somehow I knew there was somehow in my instinct, I knew something was happening, and we needed to take the risk.
Yeah.
We needed to take. So sometimes there's risks that you just instinctually know.
Yeah.
And that was one of those situations. And that's what we did. We placed orders with Phytoderm for GM Colin and Yonka.
Yeah.
We started placing orders, got our products in, but they were sold out within less than a week.
Yeah, and it was getting shipped from my apartment, I remember.
Shipped to your apartment. And I mean, I think at that point, I partially went crazy because I was like, now is the time. Now is the time that we have to put the pedal to the metal and really do everything physically possible to bring in as many brands as possible, opening up our Medi Spa at the same time, doing all these things at the same time. It was, I think I kind of lost my mind actually for a minute because I was so focused that there was nothing else that I could even think about besides that.
Yeah.
What about you?
During that time, actually, that was when we lost the job in like June of 2019.
July 4th specifically.
July 4th, 2000. I was in Europe at the time visiting my family, and luckily enough, I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time who was very helpful.
Very supportive,
and gave me time to sort of find myself while also building BSC and just discovering like what the next steps were. Before, in terms of like, what was happening is that right before actually COVID started, I got a job at 40 West, which is a steakhouse in the West Island.
Yeah, to kind of subsidize at night.
Yeah. So my journey was, I was working 6 days a week at a restaurant as the head hostess. And then during the day working on BSC, shipping orders, doing everything. And that was my life for, I think, 5 years.
Yeah.
Until we were confident enough that I could not work at the restaurant anymore. Plus, I think like I was getting tired of working like all day long, dropping off packages at Canada Post, going to work at my job till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then doing the next thing the next day, and the same thing the next day. That was my struggle. And then, I did that for 5 years until we were confident enough that I could like leave my job and like everything will be okay.
And not only did you have that, you had me at like probably 6 o'clock in the morning, sending text after text after text. Like, we need you this, we need you this, we need you this, we need you to this, you know, because I didn't know how to do everything. You had been working on the website already. You were kind of in charge. We were with another company. We weren't with Shopify at that point. We were with Lightspeed. We changed over to Shopify. It was probably one of the best decisions we've ever made. Yeah, they've been amazing.
But Lightspeed ultimately is a POS system. Yeah, it's not an
they're
online.
Good for restaurants and stores and stuff, but not for e-com so much. And they had no intention to...
At the time,
I don't know what they're doing now, but...
No idea. Yeah. But that was that struggle there. And then I do remember like I was handwriting all the notes to all of our clients. Like I remember at one point there was a shift from me walking to Canada Post with a bag of packages to be shipped, to the point where I was scheduling Canada Post to come to the apartment to do our pickups every single day. So like there was a big shift during this time where things had just escalated so much. I was uploading brands after brands after brands onto Lightspeed and then eventually Shopify. And there was just a huge shift during this couple months of when COVID hit that we were just kind of like had to adjust at an exponential speed.
Exponential. And we exponentially grew also at that time. Like we got a lot of no's from brands. You know, I spent my days on the phone talking to people, trying to reach people. I was obsessed and wouldn't take no for an answer almost. Like there was no way. I knew it was going to work, you know? And I just needed people to understand what our vision was, because our vision was never to be an online boutique, an e-commerce store. It was always so much bigger than that. Yeah. And we always knew it was always had this, like, what do they call that? This North Star that you always look toward and say, okay, this is where we're going. Like I remember during the pandemic saying, we need to start a podcast. We need to get an app. We need to do this. We need to do this. So I was really way ahead of where we were as a company or what we could even afford. But I knew that's where we wanted to go. And it never for 1 second did I have a doubt in my mind. Yeah. So I spent my days, to go back to what I was talking about before, I spent my days on the phone, sending emails, trying to convince people, getting brands to understand what our vision was, because our Medispa had not been opened yet. Some of the brands that we have needed to have a Medispa or like medical direction for us to be able to
carry them online. And I mean, that changed a lot since, because a lot of people softened because COVID was the explosion of e-com, right? That's when everybody went online. But I always knew that I knew that COVID was going to end and the world was going to go back to normal. And I knew that there was a time frame that we needed to establish ourselves as a brand and to have the brands that we wanted to have in our portfolio. So I was always like, it could stop tomorrow. I had this thing in me that was like, it might be over tomorrow. So I need to push. And I swear to God, I did sometimes like 15, 16-hour days. I was out of my mind. And you did too. Yeah. But differently, because you had to subsidize an income. But I also, and I was more working on the back end and the shipping. Yeah. So like I was... like you'd get a brand, we would be like, okay, now I had to put it live. It's like, that was so much work. And then we would sell the product and then I had to package it. Like it was just different roles, which we still do have different roles. That was like how we managed the business. You were doing everything externally and I was doing everything internally. And then you were doing everything finance.
Which is not in my wheelhouse of things that I love to do. And I was doing
like operations, shipping operations, and like IT.
Right. And customer service.
And customer
which was
service.
tough.
Yeah.
Customer service with tough. Talk about it.
Yeah, customer service. I think from COVID, people got very nervous and stressed and impatient. And I remember during the time, like businesses were shut down. Canada Post was shut down, but somehow, like not shut down, but
Slow.
Canada Post was slow. One, because there was sometimes outbreaks in Canada Post offices across Canada. So those offices were closed so that nobody could ship
So
there.
bottlenecked everything.
So would bottleneck everything. What was the quarantine time? It was like
2 weeks.
It was crazy. So
2
like
weeks.
it would bottleneck everything for 2 weeks in that area. But then also everybody went online. Everybody was shopping online.
So all these companies were popping up left, right, and center.
Yeah, and you couldn't go to stores, so everything was online. So all shipping got backed up already because of the online, and then bottlenecked because COVID outbreaks.
Yeah.
Which I don't think people understood.
No,
and
they
there was a
didn't.
sense of, I don't know, like a sense of insane urgency or something that people were experiencing. And I think that also comes from Amazon being such a fast shipper. They had their own shipping things. Like they worked.
They also propelled during that time. They completely
so they
propelled.
did, and they were able to really ship properly, like not rely on Canada Post. They had their own shipping.
Intelcom. They had
No, I
Intelcom,
think
but
they had
they had their own
they had
Amazon
their own.
trucks. They hired
In Quebec, they did.
independent drivers.
Not anymore, but yes,
Yeah,
in
at the
Quebec they
time.
did.
Yeah.
And so they were able to ship so quickly within themselves. So people got upset, and it was like, we were also a new company at the time. So I think there was this sense of people weren't sure if we were reliable.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like we would ship it, and then Canada Post would say that they would have it. And then it would be like 3 weeks or 2 weeks before there was any movement on the order.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, you frauded us. And we got some really aggressive people, which was at the time I took extremely personally because it was like my baby. And I'm like, if you're insulting the company and saying that it's stupid and this, it's like, I take it so personally because it's my company. So I would read these messages and like be distraught for days, like completely so affected by it.
Yeah.
Which I really struggled with. And then I got to a point eventually where I was like, okay, like I need to separate myself from the customer service, which is when we like hired people to start doing.
Yeah, I was helping you too with customer service in the beginning and answering
because it was
people
very difficult for me to separate people's rude remarks, and then like it would really affect me. Like I was distraught by a lot of the comments, and it's like people became ruder and less
tolerant.
less tolerant. I think also because Amazon and other retailers were like so quick to return, so quick to do these things. It was bots. Like they were so ahead of the times in terms of like
Lululemon and companies like that already had an online presence that was very
whereas
strong.
us, it was like, I'm the back end. I'm the one you're talking to. I'm not a robot. I'm not somebody you can just like rip apart and expect to get what you want. You know, like I'm also a human. Like there was like this lack of human approach, which was so hard.
And accusatory. A lot of people come in with an accusatory tone, like, you did this, you did that, you're this, you're that.
Ultimately, like, has it gotten better? I think that we just became a more reliable company, and we have a lot, like, functioning 10 times better, right? And there's a lot more happier people, but people are still ruthless to this day on the internet.
I think
like, it's actually quite disturbing.
Well, you know, if you're listening to this and you've dealt with Boutique Skin Envie, you're actually dealing with human beings.
Yeah, you're not dealing with a robot.
Unless it's after like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, then it goes into an automatic response.
Yeah, but
during
letting
the day,
you know that we'll get back to you, and that will get back to you is somebody from our team, an actual human being getting back to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was, anyways, at that time it was very hard. And there was a massive shift. People became very impatient, very like, I guess, a sense of fear. All these things were
also
playing
entitlement to a certain degree. Like I bought from you, so therefore I am entitled to this, this, and this. And I didn't read your terms and conditions. I haven't read the confirmation email to say that we ship in a certain amount of time. I don't really care about your policies. I want what I want.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's a bit tough.
Yeah, it opened up like a door of like this world that I was so unaware of. And then I always think about these massive retailers like Zara or Sephora. And I'm like, how do they deal with...
Well, they don't answer the same way, I don't think.
But I think at this point, like they got so big that anybody who would... Like you wouldn't even be able to get through to a real representative.
No,
in
I've
a way.
tried many times in my life to deal with somebody.
Maybe not Sephora, but I know Zara, like it's hard. Like they're like insane
if you
company.
place an order with
if you're upset with something, they don't really care.
Yeah.
They just like accept it.
Deal with it. We're a big retailer, so we have the monopoly, right? So there's a different vibe around it where we are really like, truly, truly care, and our reputation is extremely important to us.
Yeah. And I remember some customer service stories where people would take things very personally against, like, I'd be like, hi, my name's Natasha, blah, 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 blah. And they'd be like, you're stupid. Like, blah,
You
blah,
don't know
blah.
how to run a business.
Yeah,
You
like,
should not be in business.
it would get like really intense. And I'm like, wow, like this is so shallow. Like, you're waiting for a face cream and it's the middle of COVID and I remember saying that all the time. I'm like, you're worried about your face cream arriving that you spent like $200 on. Whereas people are like losing family members and like ultimately very sick and like really bad things are happening in the world. And this is what we're concerned about. Like,
yeah.
I could never wrap my head around being rude to somebody else. Like, it just was such a foreign concept to me. It opened up this door of like, that I never even wish I saw. Like, it's just really intense things. But those are things that we've learned with, we've dealt with. I now see people who write rude to us. Like, I'm like, guys, it is what it is. Like, there's something going on. It's also just the age of what we're dealing with, like influencers, content creators, they get ripped apart on the internet
all
day in, day out. It's
all the
horrible.
time.
So like, there's this thing where people say, like, if somebody's saying something to you or they're like going at you, blah, 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 it's just a representation of like what they're going through. So don't ever take anything personally. And I think that like we have adapted that. At least I have adapted that. And I've told our customer service girls, like, don't ever take anything personally that somebody's saying to you, because it's just
and I've also said to them, always
ultimately
put
what they're going through.
Yeah. And always, I say often to the girls in the office, I'm like, the way somebody writes to you and reacts with you is you don't know what's going on in their life.
So that's a reputation of something that they're going through.
Yeah. It could be that they're, dealing with the death, or they're, had a huge fight with their partner in the morning, and they take it out on us. So always put yourself in the position of the customer and how you would want to be treated in the circumstances.
That being said, we've had some stories,
some crazy
people
ones
where I definitely had come into the office and like protected our employees.
Yeah.
Because there've been some people who are like, as much as we're like, put your shoes in the customer, like, we don't tolerate you being rude to us and being disrespectful.
Not at all.
Like, if you come in with a tone and you're being insulting towards our employees, like,
or threatening, we've had threats.
Yeah. I'll take over a customer service inquiry if somebody's like really upset. And it happened once where a girl threatened to come beat me up, like, over a face cream. So, like, at that point.
And the Canada Post delivery
she said, if I
person.
see the Canada Post person deliver my package, I'm going to beat the shit out of them. Like, literally word for word. I was like, do I need to call the cops?
Yeah. We've also had nudes, people in showers taking nudes and sending those nudes. There's some interesting things that happen along
Very
the way.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Definitely interesting.
But that being said, like, I think that's a part of every business, is there's always going to be ups and downs. And it's just, we've dealt with so many in all different departments. Like, that's just our customer service. So we've dealt with shipping issues. We've dealt with Canada Post going on strike. We've dealt with
our suppliers saying they're going to deliver products to us and they don't.
Or mistakes on orders that we've received.
Back orders that they have, like supply chain issues during COVID was massive.
Yeah. I think the hair industry is still struggling with that.
Yeah.
But like, those are so many things that we've dealt with. Meanwhile, there's so many different successes that we've also dealt with. And I think also, what's an interesting thing to talk about is the dynamic between the two of us.
Yeah.
Of mother-daughter. When I tell people, even to this day, like, I'm in partnership with my mom, they're like, oh, I could never be in partnership with my mom. And I'm like, there was times where it was tough. But I think we've come a long way. Yeah. I also think it takes a very special person to be able to do it.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about Cetaphil, dermatologist recommended skincare. At BSC, we believe in professional and medical grade skincare, but we also know that healthy skin starts with the basics. And that's why we chose to carry Cetaphil. It's a dermatologist tested, barrier safe, and perfect for anyone beginning their skincare journey. Whether you're simplifying, resetting, or caring for sensitive skin, Cetaphil helps build the foundation before introducing actives or advanced treatments. It's where good skincare starts. Shop Cetaphil at bskinenvie.ca. That's BSKINENVIE.ca, and use SkinTalks15 for 15% off your first order. Well, I've always worked with family my whole life. So for me, it comes naturally to work with family. You love the people that you work with, but you also understand that you still have a job to do, right? And so, Yeah, it was, tough for you I'm sure, because I was out of my mind relentless, and I'm aware of that. And I realized at some points that, I would start my day at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. I'd have a coffee, make my bed, do my things quickly in the morning and sit down on my computer, and I'd start my day. My day would start sometimes at 5 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning,
and then
depending on
she would spam text me at 5 a.m. and then I would open my phone for the first time at 6:30 in the
with
morning.
like 20 messages.
With 20 messages, you should do this, and like my adrenaline
For sure.
like if I could have had my aura ring at that time in my life and would have seen the spike in my heartbeat going up at the messages that I remember setting a boundary with you.
Yeah.
Saying you can't text me before 8 a.m. or something.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I like I said, I was completely out of my mind.
Yeah.
Out of my mind, obsessed with action and execution of tasks and getting things done.
Yeah.
Because in the back of my mind,
though.
Tash, like in the back of my mind, I was like, COVID might end tomorrow. COVID might end tomorrow.
I remember you telling me.
I was so rushed.
You used to always say like COVID's going to end. How do we keep our business? Like, what does our business look like after COVID?
Yeah.
It was always like, now this is what it is and it's amazing. And all of a sudden we went from like, I don't know, $7,000 of sales a month to like 50, and it was like such an exponential thing, but we were like, how do we prolong this post COVID? Like, how does our business look
creating
in the future?
a brand? And also like for me, when you start a company, we talk about entrepreneurship, the trend that it's, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but I really think that when you're an entrepreneur, you need to be somehow solving a problem. We've talked about this before, but like, what is it that you're trying to do in your business that's going to help people?
Yeah, you can't just create something that doesn't have an ultimate purpose in a way to help people, because then people don't need it.
So during a pandemic, in my opinion, or even in the e-commerce space, being a B2C business where you are a distribution center, ultimately, unless you're a manufacturer, you still can become you still are a distribution center if you're a manufacturer. We're distributors. We're not manufacturers of anything.
Yeah.
And when you do that, that's a very basic
business model
that is, it's not complicated. In a sense, it takes a lot of work and it's not easy, but it's not complicated. You have clients that buy from you, you stock product, and you're constantly ordering in product, and then you ship it. So, but that's very transactional for me.
Yeah.
And for me, that's where a lot of e-commerce, that's why a lot of e-commerce spaces died after the pandemic was over, because they were just shipping and doing a distribution, but there was no feeling behind the company. There was no branding. There was no heart of the company. It's transactional. So for me, in my way of doing things, I was always like, this company has to be something to people. Yes, we are a supplier of product, but we have to be more than that. Mm-hmm. We have to, I've always said, we want to get into the heads, hearts, and homes of Canadians. And in the beginning, when I talked about that, I remember people looking at me like some of the companies that we had outsourced and they were like, what are you talking about? Like, we have to become part of people's lives somehow in a touching, caring way. So, for example, I've always used the example of, a teenager in British Columbia is breaking out with acne, and he goes to his mom and says, Mom, like, look at my skin. It's terrible. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. Let's just book an appointment with the BSE girls and do a virtual consultation. We'll put you on a skincare program that's going to help to clear your acne and bring your skin back into homeostasis and optimal health. That was always my thing.
Yeah.
And we've really tried to do that over the years. And that was always kind of the shining star, but that's not an easy feat.
No,
it's not an easy feat. And when a pandemic is like looming to end, which is a good thing, we wanted it to end, we had to still be standing, and still be able to separate ourselves from a transactional business model.
Yeah, and that's when we really honed in on storytelling and like our
social
branding.
Media, advertising, communications.
Which also is interesting because I remember there was a turning point where we people were buying from us because of the brands we carry.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people knew about Zoe, so they're like, oh, I'm going to buy off BSC because I need my Zoe products, right? And then we were like, at one point we were switching. We were like, we need to switch. People need to buy from BSC because of BSC, and we have really cool brands, and not because of the brands that we're carrying.
Yeah.
And that's where we like kind of switched everything. And that, I think, was what prolonged the company, is like we built a brand. So people come to BSC because of you and I, because of the brands we carry, because of our loyalty program, because they know they can get advice for skin. They know they can book a virtual consultation. They know that they can get educated. All these different aspects of our company that supported everybody, and not just like, oh, I need my Zoe fix, so let me just go buy Zoe.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a switch.
And it's also, we know that the skincare industry is a massive industry, right? And it's basically split up into segments. So you have your retail brand, you have your retail brands, you have your professional brands, you have your clinical brands, you have your, you know, and most people in Canada don't know about the brands that we carry. And why is that? Because most people don't go for facials.
Yeah.
They go to nail salons, they get their pedicures, they go for a massage, but it's a really like 2 to 3% of the population goes for facials. Right? So at the same time as we carry these really niche brands and interesting brands that are very performance-based, we're also dealing with an industry that's marketed to by big brands, by mass market brands that are located in department stores and pharmacies and stuff like that. So how do you get into the heads, hearts, and homes of Canadians when everybody only knows is in one lane?
Yeah.
So for me, it was always education. And because I have the background in the professional industry of the last 30 years, and I've been going to spas, and we were a B2B in my previous life. So business to business, meaning I had brands and I went to spas and tried to sell the brands and medi spas and doctors' offices. So I understood the strengths of the industry in terms of the efficacy of the products and all of that. But I also understood the weakness of the industry, and the weakness of the industry is that people don't know about it. So as we are building this brand and trying to become a resource partner and like a recognizable company for Canadians, we also had to try to educate people about their skin, you know? And during the pandemic, everybody was on Zooms and all that kind of stuff, right? So the people were seeing their skin as they were talking, and that's when the whole medi-spa and spa industry also exploded, because they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that I have this wrinkle here or whatever. And it became like also maskne, from wearing the mask, people were getting acne. So there was like skin and wellness movement during that time.
Movement. Yeah.
So we have consistently for the past 6 years since the onset of the pandemic, have issued or published starting at 1 to 2 blogs a week with expert writers. We started Instagram Lives. We started to advertise on Google, Meta platforms, Pinterest, YouTube, which is Google. We started emailing clients. So we started our education and influence program so that we could help people understand about their skin.
Yeah.
And understand the options, and also like to know that you're not alone. If you're struggling with your skin, there are options out there, and consumerism during the pandemic became obsessed also. How many products were people buying? And
so many.
It was crazy.
But even now it's still, I think there's a
minimalist trend coming in very strong about like, slow down, because people are compromising their skin barriers, searching for magic and perfection, right?
Yeah.
It's not realistic.
It's always going to be like that. There's going to be highs and lows. It's even in the makeup industry. Like brows were one way. Everybody would wearing full face makeup. Now everybody's like into this
no makeup
look. So it sways, all the time. But we've definitely done quite a good job at bringing awareness to the brands we carry and the industry ultimately.
Well, it's our goal, right?
Yeah.
It will just elevate everything. If people are aware of the fact that for acne, you can treat it like this, this, and this, and don't necessarily have to go on Accutane. Accutane is all, I'm not dissing it at all, because it is something very good.
But there's options before you get to that step.
And when you're on Accutane, your skin really suffers. So, use these and these products. So education and asking questions, curiosity, all that stuff is where we sit and want to constantly, and as much as possible, authentically help people and inform people on the different options. And so, but just to go back to 6 years ago, when we look today at 6 years ago and all the things that we set out to do,
We've done them all.
we've done them. We've done them.
So what is there left?
No, there's a ton left. There's a ton left. Don't like get me started on this.
I think now we've done everything that we've wanted to do. Now it's just really getting granular on like the future and like honing into fragrances, honing into babies.
Babies.
Now.
Yeah, we're working on some stuff. We're definitely working on some stuff, but also
there's so much more we can target, but we've done a good job at doing everything.
Well, we've gotten to where we are in 6 years pretty well.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the things that we had to go through. We talked about customer service.
Customer service.
We talked about a little bit. We touched on how it was stressful between you and I.
Oh, yeah. We didn't really touch on that though. Like we can get deeper into that.
Yeah. So as you know, obviously as your mother, I'm more I had more experience in business. Yeah. And I'm also a very obsessed person. When I put my mind on something, like, you better get out of my way because I'm going to do everything possible to make it happen. So maybe less on the feelings and emotions around things and more on like tasks, you know? And I put that pressure on myself too.
Yeah. You're an insane like driver of things.
Well, I see opportunity and I want to make things.
And you know how to get there, which is very interesting. But like relentlessly, which is also very good, which I think has its pros and cons.
It definitely has its pros and cons. It put a lot of pressure on you, which I know. Today I know it. At the time, I didn't realize it because I was doing everything from a place of love and like, listen, Tash, you and I can do this. One thing I want you to know about like when our life fell apart that day, the instinct as a mother to protect you and to make sure you were going to be okay, because I had brought you into my world at business. And even though I knew you could get a job and I knew you could do all those things, you know, you're a very bright woman and you have had every opportunity to go work for a company.
Yeah.
You had told me that you wanted to work with me a long time ago, even though I never asked you to. You're the one who told me that. I had this insane protective motherly instinct that I have to make sure my daughter's okay. Her other side of the family, they live in Austria. She's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And it may not have seemed to you that way, but for me, that was only thing I thought about is I have to make sure my daughter's okay. I have to make sure my daughter's okay. And I thought about it every day. So because I wanted to make sure that you were okay financially, because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I had nothing to be able to give you except the life insurance if I died, you know? So, but that's not, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting.
It's not normal at 50. I mean, not normal. A lot of people have that and we are very lucky where we are. And I recognize that, but I couldn't take care of you financially. And that for me was not an option. So that was a big driver for me.
Yeah. Now that I look back at it, it makes sense. Like I see that. During the time, I think during the time I was young. I was 23, 24, 25. Was I? Yeah.
Yeah, you were young.
Yeah, I was 23. I was young. I didn't know like the severity. Like it was hard for me to be like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I know that you had zero moments of, do I want to keep going in this? I definitely had moments of that. I'm like, is this really what I want to do with the rest of my life? Is this something but it's normal at the young age to be starting something so grand and being 100% in it. I had moments of like, not sure, uncertainty of where I wanted to go.
For sure.
And I think that played also the stress of the growth that you might have put on the company and put on me, that I was like, is this really what I want? Ultimately, that lasted like a week. It's always what I wanted. I just had struggles at times. And I think that like my immaturity in business is what created that uncertainty.
Yeah. Well,
You know
I
what
think it's
mean? Does that
normal
make
though.
sense?
Yeah, it's normal. I think it's absolutely normal.
Yeah.
And I know that I wasn't easy. I think I always I think I mean, I would ask you, you knew how much I loved you and everything was
Yeah.
coming from a place of good intention, right?
Yeah. And also what I wanted to say was interesting working with you is that during this time that was so intense for you, like personally, it was a huge struggle for you. So
Very.
that affected me. And then also professionally, it was a huge struggle, which also affected me, but it made me learn a lot about how, like, luckily enough, I think that I'm I'm quite aware of situations and I'm very in tune with like how I feel and how you were feeling. I was able to understand reasons why you were acting the way you were acting. Like there was times where your way of thinking at the time was very defensive. So like moments where you were like not emotional or like totally not available, I was like, that's your defense mechanism. Like I was able to recognize why you were feeling or acting a certain way on things that your brain were going through. So I was able to do that. I think that's what helped a lot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Like
you
I
recognize
learned
that I was in trauma.
Yeah. And I would be like, okay, like it helped me get through days because if you're non-responsive or not available emotionally or certain things, or you responded to something, I was like, oh, that's her brain reacting because of this, this, and this. And I was like, okay, it's fine. Like I was able to recognize how you acted, and that helped me throughout my days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think luckily enough, I was able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And there was times when for me, I was like, I wanted to get things done and I couldn't reach you. And I was like, she's got too much. So at the same time you recognized, like I recognized back, and I would sit there and go, okay, Beate, like you're the one who's in your 50s and just had this happen to you. It's not the same for her.
Yeah.
You know, I could separate myself from that.
Yeah.
Many times, not all the time. And when you're in we talk about fight, flight, or freeze. You know, emotionally, I was frozen for a while, but I still had this incredible drive to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to put everything on the line for it.
Yeah.
And I did. Mm-hmm. I cashed in all my RSPs, every single savings I had. When you have a life insurance plan, you have an amount that you can access from your life insurance plan. I cashed that in. I cashed in every single cent of anything that I ever could. And I loaded up credit cards. Yeah. I loaded and loaded and loaded up credit cards because I was like, this is going to work. Yeah. I had never a doubt in my mind.
There wasn't really an option for it not to work at this point, I think.
No, but for me, I knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no option, but I also knew. Instinctively, I knew. And saying that, I was also recognizing that there's not a day that goes by every single day where I don't realize and feel the gratitude for what we've built and know that anything could change at any moment. If you look at what's going on in the world, I mean, we just had tons of stuff in the last year happen. Yeah. You know, between Canada and the United States and tariffs and all of these different things. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, you know, Canada Post went on strike.
Like how we rely heavily on other things that could really damage our business.
Really easily. Yeah. And so everything is volatile, you know, but I think we've built a solid enough foundation and a brand.
And a big enough community.
Yeah. That, and never once taking it for granted. No. Never, you know, and it's been interesting that, you know. So, okay. So we talked about that. And now we wanted to also talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. You know, when you're starting a business, like what does it take to actually make it happen? Some people think, oh, you know, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because, you know, I know what I want to solve and I'm going to be able to take my vacations when I want to take them. I'm going to be able to make my own schedule.
I'm going to make money.
I'm going to make money. But I don't have to rely on other people.
You know what I heard when I was listening to a podcast, it was talking about how entrepreneurship is glorified and how people think like because of social media, like you get to travel all the time, you do all these things, you make money. The actual average, this is, I think, US, the actual average income of a entrepreneurship for a long time is like $46,000.
A year,
So like
yeah.
this idea that you become an entrepreneur and then you get to do all this travel, like a lot of people are like barely living.
Oh,
And
no.
I mean, we know that firsthand. We were barely living for a very long time, making no income.
Well,
I
you
had
had two
another
jobs. You had 2 jobs.
But I think also for me personally, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, I think during the time where the growth of our company, which is really like where the grit came from, luckily I was in COVID. So like I didn't have to sacrifice so much in a way. I mean, I did, like there was times where I couldn't go to my friend's house because I had to.
We couldn't go out at night and go for dinners, and
We couldn't do,
you
like,
couldn't in your party era.
Yeah.
But
also,
you couldn't, there was no bars open. There was nothing to do.
Exactly. So I was lucky in the sense that the sacrifice was my time and my health and my well-being. Whereas a lot of people who become entrepreneurs, they sacrifice their friends, their family. Like they don't see a lot of people. Where me, it was like, I was super unhealthy. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't really working out. I like was working on a computer from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to the,
To bed.
40 West.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I worked all night at a restaurant where I wasn't eating dinner, standing in heels for hours, and then going to bed, sleeping 5 hours, waking up, doing the same thing. So my sacrifice there was like my well-being and my health and my mental health. And like to be an entrepreneur, you realize you have to sacrifice so much to get the job done. And people, I don't 100% know if that's like, they don't realize that,
Yeah.
you know?
When you think like sacrifice is a word that is like you sacrifice because you have a
passion towards something that you want to get done. Obviously,
it's not that it's not negative in the sacrifice.
No, it's something that
way.
you really, really want. So you got to sacrifice other things to get that.
And you have to basically do whatever it takes, right?
It's
basically you have to do whatever it takes. And some people, like if I could tell the stories of things that I had to do, that I did to find ways, like for example, starting a business during COVID, banks were not even responding.
Yeah.
So like you couldn't even it took us 2 years to get a line of credit. They wouldn't even look at us. We didn't have a job. Like we had revenue. We had revenue, but no job. So a risk. Banks are super, super conservative in that way. You know, we went to BDC, but because we had a legal issue because of our previous situation, they wouldn't even accept our application at BDC because we had an unresolved legal battle.
We were struggling.
My God, the things that we had to do to be able to do things financially, but
we were so stretched,
but also there was never a doubt. We always paid our bills on time. We always paid our employees on time. We always shipped the products. We never, ever missed a beat on that.
No.
But the amount of pressure that puts on you to do something is, to make things happen is massive. And, you know, whatever it takes, I swear for a long time, I would sleep literally with my eyes open and calculating how much revenue we had to have in the coming weeks to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
What kind of an event could we create, like launching our app, for example, and creating like events on the app to be able to get people on the app and the community, have real estate on people's phones and be able to communicate with them.
Yeah, you were strategizing during your sleep.
Constant. So yes, like sacrifice on health and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was hard. And what I found that I used to do is try to find things that would numb it, you know, like having glasses of wine or not blind, I shouldn't say that, watching TV, but never actually knowing.
Like mindlessly.
Like just staring at a TV screen and not even knowing what I was watching.
Yeah.
Literally not knowing what I was watching.
Yeah.
Like I did that a lot. waking up in the middle of the night, never being able to fall back asleep again at like 1 o'clock in the morning and staring at Netflix and not even knowing what I watched. I learned how to listen to meditate in a way during that time. The only way I could get my head around not thinking was to stare at the back of my eyeballs and like try to focus on the back of my eyeballs so that I could stop my brain from
weird.
thinking.
So weird.
Yeah, it was like, I think I was in panic.
Yeah.
Like a constant state of panic and worry. Because we also are, you know, when you think about it, we didn't do things slowly. Like I remember people saying to me, why don't you just like bring in one brand or bring in two brands, you know? And I was like, no, we're bringing in 50. You know, there was no question for me that we were just going to kind of slowly do it. It had to be really all for me. And that's an enormous amount of pressure. And then when you're doing that, like I often said to you because you were young coming into entrepreneurship, and also for me, in my previous job, my role was revenue, managing people and building teams, but revenue. I was responsible for generating revenue. I never looked at a bank account in my company. I never knew really what the expenses were. That was handled by a different department because I was in partnership with a family member, right? So I didn't really have an oversight on that. So I had to learn all of that, which I had, you know, and triggered by money, obviously, because
that's
fear.
one of your triggers, yeah.
Yeah, it was learning new roles also for myself.
Yeah, I had to learn how to build a website.
Yeah. And the other thing that I remember saying to you, I want to go back to what I was saying before, being a young entrepreneur, I also recognized that you were a young entrepreneur. And I used to say to you, try to find ways to be able to explain to you what it takes. And what are some of the things that I used to say to you, like building your own business is like this? I use the newborn baby as an example.
Oh yeah, building a baby. Building a newborn business is like having a baby.
Yeah. And
you would never leave it alone.
You would never not feed it.
Yeah.
You would never leave it unattended in a bathtub until the next day when you were, you know, had enough rest to deal with it.
Yeah.
And was my mindset. Is that the right thing? I'm not 100% sure, but for me.
Well, now I can understand it. Probably when I was 23, I didn't understand what it was like to have a baby.
No, but you don't leave things till tomorrow if you can resolve them today. Like you can't leave things hanging. Yeah. There's certain things that you can now, but at the time, building a business, it requires full attention, right?
Yeah.
So that was then, right? That's what we went through then.
So we talked about a lot of the personal and business struggles that we went through, but ultimately where we are now is one big, massive success for us. Like we said, we've completed everything that we've kind of wanted to complete in the past 6 years. So we're very proud of everything. And I think that also like when we talked about COVID, how we just like went headstrong into like blowing through 50 brands and doing all these things and just popping off. My advice to people is like, if you want to start something, just start it. There's no perfect time. Stop waiting for the perfect time to start something. Just do it because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. You're going to learn and then you're going to eventually succeed. Yeah. So just like go dive in. And if you're passionate about something, like, what are you waiting for? Just do it, you know?
So I think from my perspective, I agree with that. And I think that, you know, no matter what you do in life, it's never going to be easy, you know, and there's always going to be fear and there's always going to be certain elements of doubt and, you know, little struggles that we go through along the way. But the big message here is that this should be very, like, we hope that we can empower people.
Yeah.
What you said before, Tash, about, you know, what are you waiting for? If you have a good idea and you believe in your idea, and you have a solid business plan behind it, and
you're solving a problem,
and you solve a problem. You have to think about what's your business going to do to help people somehow. It has to have something. And what's your like, what do you want people to feel when they interact with you, right? Because one thing I've learned in my life is that no matter what you do, there has to be a mutual alignment of interests. And if you find and can figure out what that is, just go for it.
Yeah.
Because you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can do amazing things if you treat your business like a baby and you do whatever it takes,
Yeah.
you know?
So come back for the second part of the episode, which will really dive into the future of BSC. Thank you for listening to Skin Talks.
If this episode inspired you, taught you something new, or just made you feel seen, please share with someone you love. And if you believe in thoughtful and empowering conversations that help you make better choices for yourself around your beauty and wellness, please rate and review the show. It helps us to grow our community, and we deeply appreciate it. Because this isn't just about skin.
It's about claiming your beauty, feeling strong, informed, and at home in yourself.
See you next week.